So this morning I've been out and collected these pellets. Also grabbed some cardboard balls there and some pegs from my local Model 10 and some screws. So overall pellets were free, cardboard was free. It was just the pegs and the screws cost about 30 bucks. So I'm going to use these to build my compost bins. I'm going to try find 3 that are the same for the back wall, and then 4 sitting off that back wall to essentially create my 3 bays. Alright, so I know that these 3 pellets here are all the same size, so I'm going to use those as my back wall. These 4 here are the same size, but I really want to try avoid using these pellets that don't have the 2x4s in them. So I might use these for the front panel in the compost bin as opposed to one of the walls. So what I'm going to do is cut down a couple of these bigger pellets to be the same proportions as these ones, and use those for the walls. Alright, these pellets here with the blocks are the ones that I'm going to use as the front of the bays. So I'm just going to knock those blocks off and keep the boards underneath to tie it together. Cool, so this is what I was meaning by knocking those blocks off. You can see I'm left with what kind of resembles a gate. So I'll just bend these nails over and I can use this. So along with the pellets that I've picked up for the structure of the compost bins themselves, I've also grabbed a couple of additional pellets which I've gone ahead and broken down. Here I'm just removing the nails from the boards that I want to use. I'm just using a pneumatic denailer to do this. If you don't have one, I highly recommend that you get one, especially if you're working with pellets regularly, because it makes breaking them down so much easier and faster. I'm then taking those boards and adding them to the underside of the pellets that are going to be used for the middle walls in the compost bins. This is going to fill in any large gaps and just make it less likely that any material is going to fall through those gaps. Alright, so here are my compost bins. This is essentially what they'll look like. They're just clamped together at the moment, just so I could get an idea of how it'll all go together. Each bay is about 900 wide by 1200 deep, and I've just kept these 3 little parts here to be the gates on the front of the bays. I'll probably just end up screwing them onto the front of the bins and then just unscrewing them whenever I want to turn the bin. But yeah, next I'll be assembling them around the back. Alright, just giving the grass a quick little haircut with the weed eater here. Just knocking it down to a more manageable height before we lay our cardboard on top. Hello, you. Yeah, that one, bud. Important to note as well, if you're using recycled cardboard boxes, just to remove any tape or staples before using them. Also, just try to get brown cardboard boxes, not any that are dyed or painted. Okay, so here we are a week later. My wife ended up giving birth to our second child the morning after I took all the tape off the cardboard boxes. So as you can imagine, it's been a really busy week and I haven't had a chance to do any project work. Getting back into it now though, here I'm just laying all the cardboard out before I put the compost bins in. What I'm trying to do is lay it all nice and evenly with no gaps. That way it should stop any light getting through and therefore stop any further seeds germinating and hopefully stop any weeds growing up into our compost bins. Now that's done, I'm going to grab the 3 pallets that make up the back wall, put them in place and get them clamped and screwed together. Before anyone mentions it in the comments, I know pallets are untreated timber and prone to rotting, but I'm absolutely fine with that. Using pallets was a cheap and relatively quick and easy option to throw together. And I can always replace this with something a bit more permanent in a year or two if need be. I noticed there were a couple of gaps in the cardboard here, so I'm just laying down a bit more before I put that final pallet in place. And with those screws in, that's our back wall complete and put together. So here I'm starting to add the walls of the compost bins. I started by just clamping them in place, then made sure they were relatively square to the back wall, and then attached them to that back wall using screws. They were still pretty flimsy once they were screwed on, which is why I opted to add the pegs at the front of the bins. I added one on each side of every wall, which made everything far more sturdy. I was pretty worried that I was going to hit a water pipe here, as I know there is one that runs under here to the unit out the back. Fortunately though, and much to my relief, no surprise water fountains were encountered.
How even is this ground? Holy fuck.
Alright, so you can probably hear me here going on about how uneven the ground is. This isn't something that I thought of before putting these compost bins in. I probably should have dug the ground out level here, but I didn't. So I ended up having to take the screw that was holding the back wall to the fence out just to get those protruding walls to sit flat on the ground. Alright, bit of a better camera angle here, and probably one I should have been using from the start. Don't worry, I will learn and get better at this videoing business. Again, all I'm doing here is just making sure those protruding walls are all coming off square from that back wall, and then banging in these final pegs here. Great, so that's basically how I want my compost bins to look. My 3 bays there. All I need to do now is add the gates on the front. At some stage I will also add some sloping iron from the back to the front, just to keep excess water from going into the compost bins, but I won't be doing that today. Alright, so here I'm just measuring up the width of the compost bins. The gates, or the pieces of those other pallets that I kept for gates, are actually wider than they need to be. So here I'm just cutting them down to size, just to make sure everything fits together nicely. Cool, so when I cut those down to size, I essentially cut off one of the backing boards from each one of those 3 gates. So what I did, I just went and took the nails out of that board and reused it. So what I'm doing here is just nailing that board back on, just to tie, all the boards together, make everything nice and strong and tidy. Sweet, so there we go, all finished.
front gate is on, so if I ever want to turn them, I'll just unscrew those and turn the pole. But yeah, it's essentially job done on the compost bins. Alright, so it's been about 3 weeks since the last video, and I just thought I'd give you an update on how the compost bins are looking now that they have some material in them. So what I did before I put anything in them was I lined the sides with cardboard as well, just to stop any of the material falling through the gaps in the pellets. I've added a bunch of different materials in here, so a mix of greens and browns. I ended up cutting down 3 trees around the front of the house that you can see in the start of this video, and mulching all of the smaller stuff. I kept the larger woody bits for wood chip, which you'll see in one of my later videos.
If you're interested in what materials actually went into these compost bins, I have a list here for you. So there was fresh mulch, lawn clippings, coffee grounds, leaves, leaf mold, some ground charcoal, brown paper bags, and cardboard.
Holding up fairly well. Once this one's full as well, I will leave these to sit for a month or so before I turn them. And like I said, when I come to turn them, I'll just unscrew these gates on the front here and turn the pile into the bay to the right. So this one will end up there and the left hand one will end up in the middle. Once they're completely rotted down, I'll move them all into one single bay and then start the process again.
Cheers for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. Also, leave me a comment, as this is only my second video and I don't have any yet. Bye.